Well, good evening and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. This is Eve Gomez, the CEO of Ethereal Lifestyle magazine, and we have a wonderful person here, a wonderful spirit here today, and we want to hear what her heart is all about, what her life has been, and where she is and where she's going. And so, if you can introduce yourself, your name, and where you're from.
All right, well, my name is Daniela Elizabeth Troche, but everyone calls me Sunshine, and that is spelled S-O-N.
So let me start off with the S-O-N. Why Sunshine S-O-N?
Well, when I came back to Indiana for the second time, I started a drywall company, and I'm pretty outspoken about Jesus, but not overbearing. So I figured if people said, well, what does the O stand for? Why is it S-O-N? Well, I could talk about the Son of God.
Amen.
Yes.
Wonderful. So now let me take you back to memory lane, Sunshine.
All right.
If I can call you Sunshine?
Absolutely, girl. We've been friends for a long time.
I know, right? So, Sunshine, where are you originally from?
So I was born in Germany, and actually in a little place called Wunderberg inside of Bamberg. Y'all call it Bamberg, we call it Bamberg, Germany. My mom was a single mom and took me to they call it Kinderheim, so it's an orphanage and a kids' home, a children's home. And so I lived there for the first 8 years and 2 or 3 months of my life. And then my mother married a Vietnam veteran and brought me to America. And I'm grateful.
Wonderful. So you said you were away from your mom for those
Yes.
8 years?
Yeah, she was not able to care for me. So in Germany, the social system is a lot different. And so if you have children you can't take care of them, you just take them to the Kinderheim. If kids don't have any parents, they take them to the Kinderheim. It's called a children's home. It's orphanage for some, and then a children's home. And then parents can come and see you when when they're able to. So yeah.
How was that like? I mean, 8 years. I still remember when I was 4. What do you remember of those 8 years? If you can share with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to share with you. Because it shaped where I went, and it shaped where I am now and where I'm going. It was rough, I think, because I just wanted to be loved. I think we all have that desire. And my mother didn't make a lot of time for me. I did not know my real father. The fondest memories I have of that time in my life is when I would get to go and see my grandmother, my Omi. She had a young lady that lived a couple stories above her who went to college in Bamberg and would take the train with me, or I'd walk down to with one of the nuns, and then get on the bus and go to the train station, and I would ride with her on the train to my grandmother. So I remember quite a few of those trips. And then the other thing that I really remember about being in the kids' home is Frau Kunte, who was there. She was it was a Lutheran home. Actually, it was an old castle. And she had these bright blue eyes that, like, when she spoke, you just felt love. And she was also very kind. She actually continued to write me for 3 years after I came to America until she passed away. So that's most of what I remember. And I remember not fitting in. I'm a little different.
No, you don't say.
Very introverted, and I just didn't fit in. I didn't know how to fit in. And so when I did come to America, that was really difficult to be labeled a foreigner, to be labeled a Nazi. This was 1973, I should say that.
Okay, I was just going to ask how young you were when you were brought here.
So it was born in 65 and then came here in the summer of 73. First couple months at my stepdad's parents' place out in the woods in Washington Courthouse, Ohio. And then the culture shock hit. He was stationed to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And, no disrespect to anyone. I'm not a prejudiced person by any means. But I had never seen people of a different nationality. I had never seen people of a different skin color. So, coming from a children's home in Germany, being in such a strict, structured environment with, like-minded, maybe the girls had different color hair or eyes, but all pretty fair skinned, to coming here into a military environment with just so many different national. And in 1973, if you can even remember what 1973 was all about, the Vietnam War was just starting to dwindle down just a little bit. So it was pretty hectic, and it was hard, but I survived.
So you were moved here to this country at a young age with your mom.
Mm-hmm. And
so,
my brother.
And your brother.
I have a half brother. Well, he's got a whole body, but he's a half brother because he's got a different daddy.
Okay. And thanks to the stepdad, you said?
Yes.
Married
Michael
your mom?
Wood.
Okay.
Yes. 101st Airborne, in the Army all of his life, medically retired when he got cancer for the second time. He actually did 2 tours in Vietnam and passed away at the age of 38. And he was hard. He was hardcore. And, you know, so I see now, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I see now like being shaped and structured from the time literally that I was dropped off the day I was born and then coming here to America, and then my stepdad just being really hardcore and, you know, being in the military and disciplining us the way that he did. He was very violent if you didn't follow the rules. We reconciled that when I was 19. I went to find him. Like, it was just overwhelming. I woke up really hungover. One day I went and found him 3.5 hours. And I said, you know, I just wanted to come and say that I'm just really sorry for all the trouble I put you through. But he almost got kicked out of the military when I was 13. I was out of control. So literally, you know, him just being so, like when I first got to America, just, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this, it needs to be like this, it needs to be like, no breathing room. It was hard. Because I came to America thinking, oh, I'm going to be with my mommy, I'm going to be with my brother, and I'm going to have me a daddy. And that was just, it was an illusion. So their relationship was not healthy by any means. A lot of alcohol. And so I started drinking. Well, you know, Eve, when I say you know, because you do know, because we've been friends a long time. Started drinking. They had always had liquor underneath their cabinets. I started drinking by the time I was 10.5 years old.
Wow.
I was already overwhelmed. And I can remember my mom saying one time when I said, I love you, she goes, well, I know that. Like, it just, like, I had this feeling in my heart. And so I just thought, well, they drink that and they look like they feel better, so let me try that. And so that's how I started going to school with a buzz.
Wow.
And then, you know, started smoking weed. So filling that gap, you know, filling that gap that God made for love, I was filling it with whatever they had. And then, not that they smoked weed, was always plentiful. And then getting sent back to Germany at the age of, my stepdad was stationed back over there at the age of, I was 11 and a half. No, almost 12. So 11, but a little over 11 and a half years old. And then, you know, over in Germany, the hash is plentiful, and the speed was, they were selling liquid speed, and I was out of control. By the time I was 12 and a half years old, I was just doing what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, getting kicked out of school a lot. Got banned from school, had to be sent to California to rehabilitate.
Wow. Then
was sent to Ohio to live with my aunt and uncle after they told me I was going to get to live with my grandmother. So rebellion, a lot of dishonesty on their part, shuffling me around. I did get to meet my my real father, my biological father. My mother sent me to him instead of sending me to juvenile detention. She said, you have 2 choices. And well, I didn't know who he was, but I thought, well, that's got to be better than being locked up. And that didn't go well. He was just not healthy. He was, just for lack of better words, he molested me. And so I thought, well, it's time to go there. I can remember taking off. I stole $50 from him. I took off. And he found me down in the hotel because he lived in a hotel. He was a drummer and a bartender. And so he called my mom, said, I'm sending her back. And so when I called my mom from the train station, she was nowhere to be found. So my mother and I never had a good relationship. And unfortunately, we still don't to this day. So, but I'm not angry with her. I've forgiven her. She doesn't know Jesus, and I say that I do, so I'm just going to keep praying for her. But it was rough. You know, as a kid, it was rough.
So where would you say, if there was to put a blame on all of that? Because you seem to grow up without your parents from 0 to 8, and then you didn't know your father, then you knew a stepfather, and you had it hard with him, and all that drinking, you were not in your right mind doing all that. So
if I'm going to say, like, at the time, so I'm going to be, like, speaking from that point of view for just a minute, because we don't blame anymore.
Right.
I became an American citizen just before we were sent back to Germany, and that just made me really feel connected to my stepdad, like, in a new way. And then I can remember that Christmas, he gave me a pewter that he had made, a pewter 25-cent piece in high school, and he gave it to me. He said, just in case that if, you know, I go to Germany, something happened on the plane. He was always a realist. He gave me this. It was a gift. And so that connected me to my stepdad, like mentally, but emotionally, I didn't know how. So I was very disconnected. I felt very alone. I read a lot of books, so I felt very disconnected. I blamed my mother because she put me in this home, and she took my brother out early, and so I just always blamed, like, well, she loves him more than me, because she talked about his dad an awful lot in a positive way, and talked about my dad in a very negative way, and that was before I met him. So, you know, my mom was just had a rough life herself. She actually escaped communism at the age of 5.5. And then so she had a really rough life. And I did not even understand all of that because she never talked about it until I was 16 and a half years old. And I think by that time it was too late. I will say though, when I was 25, and I was already sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I was living with a Vietnam veteran. He saved my life at 19. I'd overdosed, and he saved my life. And so just being with him, I was already working construction, but then learning the drywall trade and being a drywall hanger, being a framer with the big boys and high rises and such. That was my self-esteem, and just working and getting really good, you know, in that trade. That was like my existence. That was my confidence, because we did a lot of difficult jobs. And but back then you could do whatever you want on the job. They didn't care if you were wasted. They just cared that you didn't get hurt, and if you did, get your butt off the job. So it was really a carefree life, and I was having the time of my life, and my self-esteem was all about what I did and what I could do, which wasn't healthy, while I was still blaming my mom because she never like really gave me an opportunity. She never loved me the way I wanted to be loved. Well, I now know as an adult, and as I said, there was a period of time when we communicated. I began to understand a lot, how is she going to show me love? She never saw it. Her relationship with my grandmother was horrible. I witnessed that. Putting my grandmother in a nursing home when I flew back to Germany when I was 32, and she had broken her one hip, and then she broke another hip, and so she needed to be put in a nursing home. You know, so it was just rough, but you know what? Mom doesn't know Jesus. My grandmother didn't really know Jesus, and I know Jesus.
Amen. So would you say that your mom didn't know love either?
No,
since
not
what
at
you
all.
said, what she had to go through at a very young age.
How are you going to nurture your child if you wasn't ever nurtured? And I understand that now. I didn't understand that until, I'm going to say till I met Jesus. You know, and for anybody out there listening, it's, you know, not just going to church and not just reading the Bible and all that, but just really having a relationship with Jesus and saying, if I want to be like Jesus, I need to just like shed all that unforgiveness. Like I just need to let it go, get it, just leave it alone.
And so obviously something had to have happened. You said you were getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. So when was that point, that breaking point where you actually just said, okay, this is it? So
I will say, I'll just be honest. I had an opportunity to go to Australia with a company that we were working for. And I'm going to tell you, I was about 27 years old. And they looked at me and they said, we want you to go, but you can't take him with you. His name was Dennis. And they said, we don't want him to go, but we want you to go, and we'll pay your way. And I seriously considered going. And the loyalty in me said, you know what, he saved my life. And I started looking at my life. I thought, wait a minute. He's 20 years older than me. He's a Vietnam veteran. And he knows his craft very well. But they don't want him to go because he lived in the era of Vietnam, you know, in his head. Like, he didn't complain, but he just talked about it all the time. And he would not stop drinking. He would not stop getting high. And I realized, you know what? I'm helping him to keep, you know, leaning on that. I don't want to be leaning on it anymore. And so I had the courage to say, you know what, we need to split up. I believe it's right after I turned 28, a couple months after, in that summer. And I just said, Dennis, I'm just done. I didn't really have like much of a desire to like be a Christian, but being in a Lutheran home, you know, like I said, at 8 years, for that first 8 years of my life, I knew there was a God. I didn't understand his son so well. And I'll say this, I read the Bible. The neighbor gave me a Bible right after I met Dennis. Well, a couple of years after I met Dennis, when we moved from Florida to Georgia, and I'd read the Bible just so I could go to sleep. And I just never grasped the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross until I said goodbye to Dennis. And my landlady, she just really took me under her wing. And she didn't preach to me. She just loved me where I was at, Joanne Sally.
Gave you what you needed.
Gave me what I
needed. True love.
That's exactly
Real
right.
love.
That's exactly right.
That wanted good out of you.
Yeah, I saw, like, I was on my, I did something really stupid. I pulled out a gun out on somebody that I had helped for quite some time, and I was on my way to prison for attempted murder. The state picked up the charges, and I'll never forget it. She's looking at me, and she says, honey, if you don't go and lie to the DA, you are going to prison. And she started crying, and I'm like,
wow.
You know, and I was being all big and bad. At that time, I'm 160, 159. At that time, I was 125 pounds and 5'8.5", and I thought I was Superman. And when she started crying, man, something inside of me just broke. Like something in my heart just broke. Like this lady is crying over me. Like I had never seen it except for my grandmother. So it just kind of brought me full circle. Like this is a lady that loves you the way your grandmother loved you. And so it took me a little bit to get up the courage to go lie, but she said, all you got to do is say no when he asked if you pulled out the gun. So I said no, and I think it was God's way to save my life because I wouldn't have lasted long in prison. I had an attitude enough for probably 10 people.
Wow. And
nobody was big and bad enough. You know, Eve, you and I have been to a couple of prisons together.
Yes.
They big and they bad.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I wouldn't have lived long.
Wow.
So I think it's just God's way using Joy and Sally to really just get into the core of my heart to say, you know, this is what love looks like. I will love you as you are if you just start to let go of some of your beliefs. And I did. I mean, she, you know, and then when she brought me to Jesus, it wasn't all this like preaching and all of that. She'd invite me to church. I'd smoke a few joints and I'd go with her and she'd go, oh, I just love your perfume. And she'd smile. I know it's crazy.
What an aroma, right?
But you know, and then she'd take me to lunch, but she never gave up on me.
And it worked.
If I hung out at the bar until 2 o'clock in the morning, she brought soup to the little trailer door. You know, a little travel trailer.
And she probably did a whole lot of praying behind that.
Yeah, praying in Prescott, Arizona.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's fast forward now. Yeah. You moved to Indiana. How long you been out here in Indiana?
So the first time I came out here, I came out chasing sexy britches, Clayton. We got married and gave our life to the Lord. Got really involved in youth group. Moved back out to Arizona, got really further involved in youth group and in living for Jesus. And then Clayton decided he didn't want to love Jesus anymore. I was sharing with you earlier that I flew back to help my grandmother move out. I, you know, cleaned out all the apartment and everything. And so he broke that trust. And so I came back and then I just said, okay, we'll try it a second time, and broke that trust again. And I said, okay, we're done. December 3rd, 2003, I made a commitment at the courthouse after we signed the divorce papers and said, Lord, I'm going to help women. I'm going to help their children. Because I've been mentoring women in the church, some of them that were struggling with drinking and some of them just with relationships. So I was already, you know, just helping. Right before we got divorced, I started working in a juvenile facility for girls. And so when I made that commitment to the Lord, I had already had an experience of working in a setting where young girls, interestingly enough, from Indiana, living on top of Mingus Mountain and just outside of Prescott Valley, Arizona, who were on their way to prison if they didn't straighten out, and working there for 4.5 months and then signing them divorce papers. I said, Lord, I'm going to help women and their children, and I'm not dating anymore. And I will say this, I'm really proud of that because I was very promiscuous. I used to be pretty good looking.
You still are. You're still a beautiful woman.
I will get you some glasses for your birthday. So if you think about it, 2003, you know, this is almost 19 years ago. So just a little over 18 and a half years ago, I made the commitment. I said, Lord, I'm not dating anybody. No double dates, no triple dates. I don't like dates. I don't like fig dates. So I'm just going to serve you. And yeah, so I did come back to Indiana on the promise of a good career with a former employer of mine. That didn't pan out. And so I started Sonshine's Drywall and Repairs, and I just never looked back. I just said, you know what, God, how hard can it be? I worked out here once before. You know, maybe my name's still around. I actually bumped into a lady at the fair by nothing but God's plan. And she said, hey, I've been looking for you for 2 years. My basement is ready to drywall into mud. So, you know, God just, you know, and I'll just say this out of my own experience, and if anybody hasn't had the experience, you just trust God and let him just guide you. It may not seem orthodox, but it's God's path.
So would you say that everything that
and that was in 2004, Eve. I'm sorry, I didn't quite answer your question. That was in the summer of 2004. I just started my own business again, Sonshine's Drywall and Repairs.
And you had already been taught to do all that work. So would you say that everything that has happened to you, that you've been taught from the drinking, getting high, to the drywall and all that, has actually allowed you to get to your next thing.
Oh, yeah.
Up until now.
You know, I share this verse with the ladies in Psalms 32:8 that God has your best plan ever. He has your best path ever, depending on the version you read. Absolutely. I don't think God makes mistakes. I know he doesn't make mistakes. And even if we don't make the right choice, if you just trust him, he'll get you back on the path he has for you. So absolutely. Because I didn't mention, but we had Hearts Delight drywall and repairs. Excuse me. When I came out here, I gave my life to Jesus November 9th, 1997.
It's a very special date. That's the date that my dad earned his wings.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom earned her wings in November 9th.
Okay.
That's a good date. So
it's a good date,
when
right?
I read that, I was like, oh, that's a special date. So,
and when I say this, my pastor, right after I got baptized, my pastor said, you need to hire this guy that just got out of prison. I said, I'm not hiring anybody that just got out of prison. Are you kidding me? He was tall, no prejudice, but he was tall, black, and I was this little skinny little girl. It must have been a sight. I never really thought about it, but that really is where, when you're talking about God shaping my path for helping people with incarceration, that's really where it took off, because Lyle and I had a lot of good conversations. Besides that, we probably look kind of strange hanging drywall together.
But here we are now, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
Sonshine is doing some amazing work. She did say she wanted to start a ministry with women, and that is exactly what she's been doing out here in LaPorte, Indiana. And Sonshine, it's a blessing to have gotten to know you, to have gotten to know some of your residents and beautiful women that you have helped along the way, that you have allowed God to use you to put them in the path that they need to get on. Because we're dealing with, or you are dealing with women that somewhat mirror some of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And the drinking and the getting high and all that. So how long, well, first of all, tell me a little bit about where you are now, this not-for-profit. How did that come out?
So I'll try to give you the fast version of it. So I moved back out here 2005, joined the Christian Motorcyclists Association, started doing prison ministry, and recognized that there was absolutely no place for the ladies to go. And I said, okay, God, these ladies need a home. I was in my last semester of college at E.V.E Tech, and my professor said, you need to start a nonprofit. I said, well, I need to make money. He said, well, you can make some money, but you won't make a lot of money, but you'll help people, and that's where your heart's at. I had started volunteering in the local jail and then started doing Bible study, and that's where this vision came out of. There was no place for them to go. LaPorte County is the second largest county in Indiana, and we are still the only recovery home that is operational. There's one that started, but they're really struggling. I say we are thriving because we never took Jesus out of the mission statement. So this home was a vision in 2008. We bought the building in September of 2011, almost 3 years later to the date, and we opened it in September 26th for full-time occupancy, September 26th, I'm sorry, in 2016. So we are now 5.5 years into it. COVID was a challenge, but here we are. And may I say this, it took 8.5 years to raise the money to find 3 years to find the money for a building, 5.5 years to build it. And we had a fire after 4.5 years, and then had to rebuild for another year. And I just never gave up. A tremendous amount of community support. 503 other people that helped build this home.
Wow. And it is a beautiful home.
Thank you.
That you have here. So how many young ladies would you say have gone through your program?
I can tell you exactly. 75 of them have gone through here. We currently have 3 of them. Michelle I took a hiatus after COVID, and Michelle was the first resident that came back into the program last March, and she's going to be graduating in 14 days.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And then, sometimes we'll get a bunch of inquiries and say, oh, we're coming, and nobody will come. And I say, God, you know what? We did change something in our mission where we said, if you want to know God, come. Because when I first opened, I took them all. I'd go get them off the streets. It didn't work. Because they'll come and then
they'll go right back out.
It just caused a lot of chaos. So, yeah.
So what are some successful stories, if you will, in a short snippet, that you can share with us that you've had from your residents?
So we have one lady that's now doing accounting at a automotive store. We have another lady that actually became a mechanic. We have another lady that's a supervisor at a trim store. She's still working there. Big trim store that makes trim for Menards and a lot of other places. We have a lady that became a physical therapist. I don't know where some of them have went. A few of them have gone back to a poor lifestyle and haven't made it. But what I find the greatest success is that those ladies that continue to serve Jesus. And I think with the new way of doing things, if you will, by just making sure that they even want to know God, is a lot. Like all 3 residents that we have here now, they all want to serve God. They all want to get to know Jesus. They all want to surrender to Jesus. They have surrendered. They've been baptized, but then the real work of like the daily surrender is the real challenge. So, yeah.
So how do you operate this, with what funding?
Funding?
Praying?
So, you know what? When I first started, I would go to a lot of different executive directors and talk to anybody that knew anything about nonprofits. And they said, you've got to write grants because you'll never make it on fundraising. So we wrote a couple grants and we're shut down because we don't have a lot of women that come through here. We're not about the numbers, we're about the character. How have we survived? Seriously, we built this by praying. We don't owe anything on the building. It costs about $220,000 a year to operate the building with 4 or 5 women in it. We don't buy frozen bags of food. We cook fresh food. We do a lot of programs, Eve. We do a lot of CBT programs. We have 3 of those that we do. We're also a Christian home, so we definitely have, we just changed to the Heart of Addiction. We also do Celebrate Recovery off-site. They also go to Bible study. We do a lot of one-on-ones. Like if something happens here where somebody's having a bad attitude or they're on one, everything stops and they used to call it a powwow, but we call it a dressing meeting. We're going to address that sin, kick the devil out the door, and keep moving forward. So when you say like how we survive with the funding, we do have some very generous monthly donors. We have some very generous donors that match any fundraisers that we do. But I'm telling you, it is God, it's by the grace of God that we lose funders and we gain funders. And I just say, you know, God, you know what we need. I don't spend a lot of time saying, God, please bring us this and that. I say, God, you know what we need. And I know you're going to do it. Because in his realm, it's already done. And you know that, but I just have to say that because it's already done.
It's already done.
Yes.
So those that are watching this video, you send a message to them. What is it that you would like for the community, for the viewers to do or to help with your ministry, with the recovery, women's recovery?
So I would say the most important thing that they could do is to share our mission. Not everybody has money and not everybody prays. But everybody does a little bit of something. The biggest thing that they can do is that they know women who are incarcerated, who are sick and tired like I was, that want to know God. We are not a facility. We're not a shelter. We're not an institution. It's a home. Like that's, you'll hear the ladies, even the ladies that have left here angry, they say, you know what? I felt at home here. I feel safe here. I feel loved here. So they can share, and they can go on worthyrecovery.net. Check us out on the website. Michelle is actually already working for us full-time, so she is learning the marketing aspect. Wonderful. And she's a natural. I'm hoping that Misty, who's here, she just became the lead resident, and I would like to see her become the house manager because she is overwhelmed with the Holy Spirit. She wants to sit around and read the Bible all day, which we get plenty of time to do that. And I would really love to see Joanna come back and be a case manager and a recovery coach because she already has a degree in criminal justice. She just needs a place to utilize that. The dream from the beginning, Eve, was that the women would rise up out of this home and help to run it because I'm not going to be alive for forever. And so if people want to invest in that, they are more than welcome to donate. They can pray. And if they want to come and volunteer, they can, like I said, just get a hold of me through worthyrecovery.net, or you can email me at info at worthyrecovery.org. That's how you get a hold of me. If you want to call me, it's 219-405-7006.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and welcoming us into your home.
Thank you.
At Worthy Recovery Home with these beautiful women. And thank you for your service. Thank you for your obedience in doing what you do. And may God continue to bless you. Right? Hey, without him.
Jesus. Yeah. Without him, I'd be dead. I wouldn't have made it to Australia. I wouldn't have made it to Tahiti. I'd be dead. So thank you, Jesus.
Thank you once again for being obedient and for what you do, and may you continue to shine. Sun, shine. Sun, S-O-N, shine.
Thank you, Jesus.
Right. You know what? Before we go, I noticed something shiny. Is there anything special meaning that you have there?
Oh, yeah. You know, a lot of people ask about this necklace because it has a cross And then this little tag right here, it's actually a gold necklace and it says inspire. So it's not that it's real gold, that is nice, because a lady gave it to me who had 2 sons that I helped in the jail. I spent 12 years volunteering in the jail. And so she brought this necklace to me when we opened our doors, and it says inspire. And I just cried because I thought, wow, like who would spend that kind of money on someone like me? And so I put my little cross next to it. And my mission is to inspire, first of all, the ladies that are in this home. And then secondly, anybody that gets around me. Because if they're around me more than 15 seconds, I'm going to find a way to talk about Jesus Christ.
Oh, and she does. Thank you so much once again, Sonshine. We appreciate you. God bless you.